Hi, and this is director's commentary for the short film production Time Behind Time. I'm Kyle and I play as the main actor. I'm also the editor and the writer.
And I'm James. I'm the director, editor, camera person, sub-actor and writer.
Hi, I'm Jess and I'm the editor, photographer, writer and camera person.
With our short film production, we wanted to idolise sci-fi genre and include a thriller twist on it. As with sci-fi, they have heroes, monsters, aliens. We decided to keep with the thriller genre for our character, keeping both protagonist and antagonist as a human, but both of them being Kyle as the same person. So, as is like with, say, an action/sci-fi film, it's more of a good and evil battle. We wanted it to be more about moral rights and the morals of what the person had done, and questioning whether going back in time and fixing this was appropriate or whether he had to live with the consequences in the future.
A film that also follows this plot is Star Trek Into Darkness. This film is mainly based around the whole idea of there is no clear side of good and evil, black and white. As the main antagonist, Khan, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, attempts to save his crew, but in order to do so, he has to take a route down the terrorism life. But by doing this, he shows his loyalty to his crew and stands up for his morals, allowing Kirk to question his own morals and the institution that he stands for, as this is the one that Khan is rebelling against in order to put things right for himself and his crew. So this kind of shows morals and good and evil, but in a more modern, realistic and more practical manner, as it's never always going to be black and white. So this is kind of something we wanted to portray, because there are many different decisions and many different ways something could come out. So this was one thing we wanted to develop on and use as a key inspiration really towards our film, allowing us to develop it and develop the idea of morals from this point on. So yeah, this really helped in our film.
So what we wanted to interpret was a different meaning for sci-fi. Whereas other previous films you get the characters, we wanted to base it more around the theme and the timeline. So with time travel we wanted to include the sci-fi theme but more integrated into the timeline of the film itself. So we didn't have to show like superhero capes, aliens landing from another planet or big scary monsters, but more like the connotations of time travel with the clock going backwards, which challenged like the forms of sci-fi films. This included like more thriller genre films like Inception, where you get all the humans in a kind of dream world where they don't have clear sides to go to, no good, no evil. It's like linked again with the morals. So we kind of based it kind of like that, as in having human characters with human problems, trying to solve it out. This was like a really good climax builder in order to build it up to the climax point where you could use the timelines, paradoxes and alternate realities. So changing the future, for instance, which worked really effectively. So this helped keep a truer nature to the theme of what our film was about. So would you like to carry on, Kyle?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much. With the production, it mainly revolved around the kind of eerie and manipulative background, which led to the somewhat construction of the poster and review. The poster, I'd say, was the most creative out of the two artefacts, because it was pretty much the easiest one that we could do out of the two, out of the review or poster. because it was easiest to make more engrossing to the audiences. As well as that, Jess did very well with what she was doing, because the lessons that she's taken gave her the skills that she needs to kind of create the poster that we have now, with the whole dark background, the two main characters back to back. Like I said, she did very well with what she was given.
As Kyle said previously, we used the main ideas from our production to link in with the poster. The main idea I wanted to use for the poster was the idea of showing the two main characters and the two different locations. I wanted to include the locations to link in closely with the production alongside the relevant character for that part. The first main location was the country path that is led underneath the bridge to the forest, which is where a majority of our production was filmed, as well as the graveyard, which is seen in the beginning and end of the production. For me, it was important these featured within the poster so the audience will be able to relate between the two.
In the process of writing the review, I found it quite difficult to capture the concepts in which the film reviewers in Empire actually write the stuff they do, because they've written it in a way which kind of includes puns but yet is smart in how they're writing it. So I tried really hard to kind of gain the perception of what they're doing, but I just couldn't do it. I found it quite a bit hard to manipulate, so I did the best work I could. So what I did was I listed of how James kind of made the film, or camera person did the film. I also commented on how James as a director has changed through the production in MGM, etc. So making a big burst and impact in the filming world. So I think I did quite well with what I was given, and I like the look of the film review, because I think it looks quite professional.
What we learned from the feedback from our film was it was overall an average of a good film, good quality. People said that we had showed some imagination in consideration of what our theme was and all that. Most people thought that we had a wide variety of camera angles and that we'd used very good composition and framing, like within the conventions of a thriller genre. So that was showing as an advantage and a good side, as a good positive. But on the downside, people thought that some of the clips were too long, some of the sequences were dragging on a bit, or some audio was hard to hear. So in that was kind of the disadvantages of our production. The good points about our artefacts were that the one of the time behind time, where you got the one person on the other side and the other on the other one, was that they met the conventions of a thriller genre poster very well. As in, you get the blue kind of sense with the white titles, which is a convention colour. So it shows very clear that it's kind of a thriller genre, but then linking it back to the sci-fi with time travel based in it and sci-fi themes. So people thought for the film review that was quite well thought out, again with the colour scheme of blue. Some people thought that we could have added a bit more background image or a more still, better still of the film, but we decided to carry on and edit that a bit, rechange and re-sequence the layout a bit, editing the texts and colour. With the blog, people thought we had also a very good layout and had organised it thoroughly and well, making sure we had each task numbered and dated in sequence, which showed we had a clear understanding and clear layout of our own blog. So going back to the film production, We went back and changed it by adding a clearer layout and upping the volume and amplifying it to make the dialogue more clear and understandable. So most of this was diegetic sound, which was recorded with the camera. So background noise did occur. So we didn't have like an on-set mic to go around or pin it to people, making it clearer. So that was the problem we had with the equipment, but sorting it out with the software worked. Then we also shortened the shots of Kyle where he's walking from Amington Fields, the shot was taken. So we shortened that sequence by narrowing it down to two or three shots, whereas before we had 4 shots to kind of set the scene, but we wanted to get in the credits there. But due to our resequencing of the production anyway, we didn't need this sequence or shot as in of Kyle walking down. So this shortened the film, but allowing us to get it within the tolerance of the 5 minutes instead of going over to about 5:25. But also, again, kept with the thriller genre, as in keeping the pace up. But this was the point where we wanted to kind of build it up subtly. So it was a nice kind of trim of the production. So it was effective in the end and kind of kept the audience's attention better instead of boring them to death with a long kind of walking sequence of Kyle. So yeah. So overall, the feedback did help us improve our production, gave us a good idea as to what they liked and what they disliked. With the camera shots, they thought we had a good composition, mise-en-scène they thought was good, but it could have been improved a bit, not sure how, but yeah. And then sound effects we did improve, and diegetic sound was all good, so overall we got good audience feedback allowing us to improve our productions. So it was very effective, and we're glad we had the production feedback, because otherwise it would have been a bit of a drag in places and not quite meet the convention.
Boring, to be honest, in places.
Yeah, could have dragged a bit, so it did help. The way in which we used media to help construct our film was through the research. In the research, we checked out all different short films, wondering how we could fill this 5-minute slot with different themes, conventions, methods. So we looked into thriller and action to see what kind of conventions they use. We noted that in the short films they use quick pace cuts, green screen, many different things. They tend to build up the thriller with a lot of soundtracks as well, such as maybe muting the scene, then building it up and up and up to a certain critical point, which is what we thought we could do as well. With the 5-minute slot, we wanted to kind of give the audience an idea of what was happening for the film, so build up to a little bit of a critical point and then cut it off at there to leave them hanging for the rest of the film, as in what happens next after that point. For the idea of what this film was based upon, we used the idea of Todorov theory to give us a baseline for our story. This represents 5 key stages, such as where it begins with a first state of equilibrium, disruption, recognition of the disruption, new/trying to repair the equilibrium, and then the new equilibrium.
I mean, yeah, as James said, the Todorov theory was quite significant in our production. As he said, it was the baseline to the whole thing, which we had to follow, which we found quite easy to manipulate in our own versions. The construction of the film was, I'd say, somewhat easy, I suppose.
Yeah.
But then you had difficult parts to film, and with the techniques we used kind of different effects. For example, the time travel theme that we chose to follow for sci-fi was we had to use a standard clock, and we filmed it after a duration of time, and then when we collected the raw footage again off the camera, what we did is we effectively put it onto Adobe Premiere, which then we reversed the clock so it made it look like it was going back in time, which we looked effectively on the production itself because we used it to underline a title as well. And along with it, basically what we did is we used a 3D bevel effect, which basically we overlaid a sphere kind of shape onto the clock, which made it more, as it said, 3D, which we thought was also effective and more appealing to us as directors and editors and also audiences. Mainly we used a Sony camera, a standard Sony camera, which filmed majority of the footage that we filmed. In conjunction with this, we used a tripod to kind of create just a steady movement, so we wasn't constantly waggling the camera around, you know, making it all fuzzy, blurry, which we like to use. For example, we used it in the graveyard where I had to return to James's grave, and we just wanted a plain long shot of the area to kind of just manipulate the scenery, kind of tell the story just basically from the start. And with that, we used green screens. And the green screen was an important part because we had to kind of manipulate the effect of time travel. So what we did is that I was in certain positions overlaid on the green screen, and what we did is we filmed a long duration of time, and when we finished recording what we needed, I ran off the green screen to create the effect of obviously disappearing. And when we put the footage onto Adobe Premiere, what we did was use dip to white. It was dip to white, wasn't it?
Yeah, dip to white.
Dip to white, and it kind of created the effect that I was disappearing. And then we used it again to appear in an overlaid footage scenery of a recent part that we filmed earlier in the production, which it looked, to me personally, I'd say it looked quite professional, which I think to say James has done really well with editing that.
As the editor for the print artefacts, I had to research into the existing posters and context. We went against the sci-fi posters and conventions as we felt this didn't offer the right feel for our production. Instead, we chose to look at action adventure and action thriller, as we felt this was better for our poster. In particular, Extreme Measures and Hitcher, as one offered a disturbed mirror image, which we felt would work well within our poster. Using the protagonist and antagonist, we can make them stand back to back to show the two different times and like the two different people, even though the same person. And this is where the main idea for our poster came from.
To create the poster, I used a range of different tools within Photoshop. For removing the background from the photos of Kyle, I used two different selection tools, which were the quick selection tool as well as the magic wand tool, which allowed me to change the tolerance to ensure I only selected what was needed, alongside the eraser tool to remove the majority of the background beforehand, which was a quick and easy method to use. I used around 18 layers to give me a more flexible, creative approach. These layers included photographs, including the background photographs and the photos of Kyle. The text, such as the titles, actors' names and other relevant information, as well as gradient and hue and saturation. I was able to use the layer style menu to add a drop shadow to the majority of the text, as well as using it to add an inner shadow onto the photos of Kyle. Using this made the text and photos of Kyle stand out more and slightly soften the edges. The gradient was used in multiple ways to achieve a more professional looking poster, as well as show the two different times. I used the gradient around the edge of the poster for the more professional feel, alongside a gradient line down the centre to divide the two different sides and show the different times and places. Cropping was another important feature. allowing me to remove the sides of the poster that I didn't need. This was closely followed by transform. This allowed me to move and resize as well as rotating if necessary. Hue and saturation is one of the adjustments on Photoshop. I use this to change both the hue and saturation of one of the background photos to suit the feel of the poster and more closely match the other photo. I used a layer mask alongside this to ensure that the layer didn't affect the rest of the other layers below. I also changed the opacity on the photos of Kyle. This ensured that they looked part of the poster and didn't stand out too much. The main titles were also edited in Photoshop. I removed the background Really?
So, thank you for watching our director's commentary and hope you found it interesting. See ya.